I'm not gonna lie, nuke the whole boat. Kidding, of course, but we cannot have this again. I think we all remember how we were during quarantine. It all started during spring, and I personally was at the end of 6th grade, and I'm sure for a lot of y'all, it was a lot of playing Roblox and Fortnite. And while I can't lie, it was very fun. I was doing absolutely nothing, and that cannot happen again. Because we're all older now, and we actually have stuff going on, and the idea of just being locked inside with nowhere to go is a way different situation than it was when I was in 6th grade with no responsibilities, other than playing video games all day. But before we even get into the main thing I want to talk about real quick, the youth is already low-key fried. We were already not in a great place coming out of COVID. Reports show that 56% of Gen Alpha students are not performing at their grade level in math. And look, I understand, math isn't for everyone, and especially during quarantine, we were generally not doing anything school-related, but only 30% of Gen Alpha 4th graders are reading at grade level. So we are still feeling the effects of that whole situation years later, and now on top of that, we potentially have Hantavirus, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. If you somehow don't know about the whole Hantavirus situation, on May 2nd, a Hantavirus outbreak was reported on the MV Hondias cruise ship, but there was already a case of someone being sick on April 6th and a death on April 11th. It wasn't confirmed to be Hantavirus until May though. I do feel like this has kind of become a pattern since COVID. Every year there's something new that starts gaining traction, some new virus or outbreak that starts showing up in the news, and people start talking about it, and everyone starts wondering if this is the one. And I'm not saying every single one of these things is going to turn into a full pandemic, because clearly most of them have it, but the mortality rate for Hantavirus ranging from 20 to 50% is pretty wild. COVID was scary for a lot of reasons, but that number on Hantavirus is not something you can just brush off. Now the good news, Hantavirus for the most part does not spread from person to person the same way COVID did. COVID was spreading just from being near people, from breathing the same air, from touching surfaces, but Hantavirus is not operating like that for the most part, which is obviously still something to be careful about, but it's a way different situation than what we dealt with in 2020. The one exception to that is the Andes strain, which is a specific type of Hantavirus that can spread between people, but even then it requires prolonged close contact. So it's not like you're just sitting next to someone at the grocery store and now you have it. The situation is more controlled than COVID was in terms of how it moves. That's the thing I try to hold on to when I see the mortality rate, because yeah, the mortality rate is scary, but if it's not spreading the way COVID did, then the scale of how widespread it would be is going to be way different. But never say never, obviously. That's the thing COVID taught everyone. Before 2020, the idea of a full global lockdown felt like something from a movie, and then it just happened. So I'm not going to sit here and say with full confidence that this couldn't escalate. I'm just saying, based on what we know right now, it looks different from COVID in the ways that actually matter for daily life. One thing I really hope people don't start doing though is the mass buying anything out of panic. It was what happened during COVID, and it is still one of the most confusing decisions humanity has made. I mean, toilet paper? I still to this day do not fully understand why toilet paper, out of all things, was the item everyone decided to stockpile on. Like, I don't understand. What was the thought process there? Why is toilet paper the item you're clearing shelves for? No matter how much you buy, you're going to run out eventually. And the thing about panic buying is that it creates its own problems even for people who aren't even planning on doing it. You see all the shelves empty, you see everyone else grabbing things, and now you start panicking too. It's just contagious in its own way. Like, one person will start buying everything and it scares the next person, and then suddenly there's nothing left for anyone, and people who actually need it can't get it. So if anything does start happening, please just buy what you actually need and keep it moving. Also, just get a bidet, it's way better. But there's also no vaccine for Hantavirus right now, which is a different situation than where we were even a little bit into COVID, because at least with COVID, a vaccine eventually came. With this, there's no vaccine currently, which means if things did escalate, the response options are going to be limited. And honestly, with the way things are going with this government in general, I'm a little worried about how any kind of outbreak response would even look right now. During COVID, there were obviously a lot of problems with how things were handled. With the current situation, I just hope that if anything does get crazy, the response is actually serious. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't have too much faith in them. I do wonder how quarantine would be for me now that I'm older, because when quarantine happened, I played games literally all day every day, Roblox, Fortnite, especially COD Mobile, and it was fun. And don't get me wrong, I still play games, but I'm older now obviously. I have more things going on and stuff I want to do that requires being outside in the world. And just being locked inside again is something I would struggle with a lot more now than I did then. I feel like if it happened again, I'd personally just feel kind of empty after a while. Like, yeah, I'd adjust and find my routine, but I don't know, just being locked inside all day, I would just feel empty. Because when it happened when I was in 6th grade, I didn't have anything that got canceled. I just got to stay home and play games. But I really hope it doesn't happen now, because especially being older, I got a lot of goals, and yeah, I don't want to be locked inside all day. And for online schools, when COVID happened and school went online, cheating was already pretty bad, and that was before AI was what it is now. But if quarantine happened again in 2026, with the AI tools that exist now, everybody would be cheating, And I don't know what schools will do to combat it, but that would be a whole mess, man. I would not want to be a teacher during quarantine. Plus, depending on how long a lockdown would be, there's a lot more antisocial people already because of the internet, and a lockdown would not make that any better. Class of 2027, yeah, y'all might as well join the class of 2020 because y'all are cooked too. And imagine being born during quarantine and not having to go through it all over again. Like, those kids are missing everything. Normal childhood experiences, the social development. I mean, the first time around they were babies and didn't know any different. But then if they had to go through that all over again, I would just feel bad, I'm not gonna lie. I think a few months before the lockdown in 2020, my dad actually got COVID before. I don't know for certain though, maybe it was the flu, but it was pretty bad for him. He's been good since then and didn't get it during a lockdown or after, but looking back at it, I'm pretty sure it might have been COVID before we even knew what COVID was. Which is wild because there was a period where it was already spreading and nobody even knew what was happening yet. And speaking of which, people who got COVID multiple times, we were literally in quarantine, we were inside, what were you doing? How did you get it multiple times when the whole point was to stay home? If anything does happen though, y'all better be practicing dances for TikTok because this is your second chance and don't waste it. And for streaming, Among Us will be making a comeback. Streaming in general is already big, but with quarantine, bro, who knows what else could happen? Because what else are most people gonna do? The content creators who were around during COVID did really well just because people had nothing else to do but watch stuff online. And if it happened again, that whole situation would repeat and probably be even bigger because the streaming and content space has grown so much since then too. Overall though, I don't think this is gonna turn into another full lockdown situation. The spread of it is already more limited than COVID ever was. And for most strains other than the Andes, it's not moving from person to person the way COVID was. Hantavirus just doesn't have that same mechanism for the most part, but the whole situation still needs to be taken seriously. That mortality rate is crazy, and just because it might not turn into a global pandemic doesn't mean people should just dismiss it. Let's just hope it stays contained and doesn't escalate further though. But as I'm writing this, we just got a second one, norovirus. I'm not gonna lie bro, 2026 might be cooked. That's all I gotta say about this though. Let me know your thoughts on Hantavirus though, sub, like, and join the Discord if you're new. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.